What's up, guys? It's Corrupted
It's Dragon.
back again, once again, with the
Um,
new three-parter series.
yeah, fan favorite, man. And Full Metal Alchemist, the Brotherhood. We
Yeah,
did the
I don't,
Brotherhood one.
I don't know where I would rank it in my top, but it's definitely in my top 10. I just don't
It's
know
definitely
where.
worth a watch. I would tell any
Yeah.
anime fan to watch this. I don't
Well,
know
I
where I
tell
would put it
anybody.
personally, but I would definitely tell any anime fan to watch this.
Well, I wouldn't even just
I don't
tell
know.
any anime fan. I would just tell anybody that likes television to watch it, because it's like it's
So then it
very
got to be pretty high.
approachable.
Then it's
Like
got to be
it's
pretty
it's
high on
super
that list. Then
approachable. Yeah, it's like like a norm like somebody that's not into the stuff that happens in anime could be into it. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to know
like
any outside
the
stuff.
the
It's
regular, it doesn't involve a lot of the regular tropes you see amongst like popular
yeah,
anime
and it
too.
doesn't like last week we did a Kamega Kill. A Kamega Kill is like one of those like I'd argue it's more advanced. Like even though
Yeah,
like
but
being more
it
advanced, it's
still falls in a lot of the tropes.
yeah, but it has like a lot of the trope. But Full Metal Alchemist is like it's not that it subverts some of the tropes. It's just that a lot of the tropes didn't exist at the time. You know what I mean? Like there's like no fan service for the like use
Yep.
of fan service. Like the only fan servicey moment is to make fun of a character.
Yeah.
Like with
Yeah.
Lust and Gene, like the only thing
Yeah.
that I think could be considered fan, and it's not.
I
I
think
wouldn't even consider that. It's just making
the
fun of
most
Gene Havoc.
the most we get, yeah, and that's probably the most fan service we get is from Lust. But then again, that's the character. That's what
Yeah,
she
she's
is
supposed
kind
to
of
be
representing.
the human, like the embodiment of the concept of lust. So it makes sense that she would.
But it's talking about just on the advanced purposes now. This is definitely I would definitely give it the stamp of being one of the more advanced stories out here. Not the most advanced stories, one of the
Well, as
more
a story,
advanced
yeah,
stories out
but I'm
here.
just like anybody could watch it. It's not
Yeah.
like Hill's Paradise. You probably want to watch a few things because it, especially as a Westerner, because it has so many concepts that comes from like
From
ancient
the east.
Japanese and
Yeah.
Chinese culture, or like another one
So you can
like
get the full
JJK, I
picture.
probably wouldn't start with it because it's rooted in Shinto mythology, stuff like that. Or like,
I wouldn't even do that. Like when I sit there and say something like advanced, and you don't even have to go so far, like because to go into the mythological parts of an anime is to like look deeper into it. But in order to stay on the surface and understand everything on the surface and yet still be interested in it, that's what we talk about, at least what I understand from the advanced part. So
well,
like
no, I'm just saying like
advanced
it's
part, like
like being
because like
like the fact that it takes place in what is clearly supposed to be pre-World War I, like based off pre-World War I Germany. Because even if you watch the original Full Metal Alchemist, that's how it ends, or the first season ends, is that he goes to actual Germany at the start of World War I, like Edward does in the
yeah,
actual
but that's the
uh
but
the
those
it's
type
like
of things,
for Westerners it's easier to get into because there's like a cultural identity that they can vibe with, but with like some other stuff,
but
somebody that's never
you
watched this stuff before couldn't.
But that's the whole thing. You have to
So
understand that some things that people are gonna watch, especially like saying what you just said with the World War I thing, nobody's gonna look and think about that on their first watch through. That's the
no,
whole
I say
point.
like
Because
it's
what you talk
easier
about,
to identify like
but that's what we talk about when you talk about like advanced stuff and stuff like that. Like when you talk about the mythologies behind stuff, anything that's based and is pointing references to, nobody's gonna get those on their first watch through unless the story points at it. So if
no,
you
I'm
talk about
saying what I'm getting
advancement
at
in
is like
story, that's what makes it. Hold
it's
on.
easier to
When you talk
get
about
into
advancement,
as a
but that's what I'm saying. When you talk about advancements in stories, it's like an advanced story. It makes you understand those things without having to know those things, or with having to know those things is an advanced story. When you talk about when you go backwards, like I wouldn't call Hunter x Hunter an advanced story because they tell you and walk you through everything you need to know in the story before you get there. When you talk about like when they put that stuff like the mythologies and stuff like that, knowing those things makes the story better. Is why I agree. You win JJK and all those things, of course, that makes it better. But on those first watch throughs, like those stuff's not gonna matter at first unless they immediately point. So like when
well,
yeah, JJK and stuff, like
I'm not
when you
talking
talk
about it
about
in
them,
like that regard necessarily. What I'm getting at is that it's a because when I'm saying new people getting into it, I mean mostly Westerners, right? Like that's when we're saying for new people because Westerners are the ones that don't really get into it
I
as
can't
much.
fully say that. I don't know that.
Well,
I can't
like
fully say that.
we know that Japan, like in Japan and other parts of the East, like anime is like one of the biggest things, right?
Yeah, but Japan is not just it's not the only part of the East. That's why I don't just say that.
I know, but I'm saying like
Like
for the
there's
most part,
bigger
when
parts
I'm
of
saying
like everything. I don't just
the
generalize like
West,
that.
I'm like Europe, America, Australia, stuff like that, Canada. That's what I'm talking about. I don't want to say Mexico because Mexico is much bigger into anime than Americans are due
But
to
that's still the
a
West though.
deal with
That's
that's
the
due to
but
a deal that they had
you
with
literally
Toei.
just you literally just point out the exact reason why I say I don't generalize stuff like that. Because you literally just said you don't want to say Mexico, but Mexico is literally indeed a part of the West.
Like they're part of the West, but they're not part of the like the usual conceptualization when people say the West. Because most of the time when people say the West, they mean Europe and predominantly English speaking countries. Like the pejorative the
But
West is
you
what it
do
means.
realize like that's also location based too, right?
Yeah. I'm
Like
just saying the reason I'm saying like when Mexico's like a exception to the rule, Mexico and Brazil are exceptions to that rule when it comes to anime because they had to deal with Toei in the 80s. I think it was the late 80s where they basically got to show the entirety of Dragon Ball Z all the time. And so that's why Mexico and Brazil, you've seen they have a lot of stuff about Goku, is because of those deals that they had. I think it was with the company that the dubbing company had to deal with Toei because it was the cheapest bit of television they could get to show people for free to have on like the
so they
public
were
access equivalent.
so basically they accepted anime in the West first.
Kind of, yeah.
So why
Because
would
of
it so now that
well,
even
not
makes
anime
even
in
more or less
general. It's
sense.
just not in general. It's just Dragon Ball Z was the only thing they could give away for free, and that like it was the thing that the government could make sure everyone could watch on TV. It's like I don't know all the like ins and outs of it, but that's the basics of it. Is that in the late 80s, early 90s, they had a TV deal where people didn't have to pay to watch Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball. The people of Mexico didn't have to pay to watch it. It was like like on their public access style channel. You know, like how
But it
here
was
there's
here too
public
though.
access which is free.
It was
Like
here too though.
you had to pay for cable to watch it here. You didn't in Mexico, which is why a lot
You
more
talk
people
like
watched it.
that's a big thing though. Like, dude, cable was a staple here for like the most part.
But like it's a like
It wasn't a staple there, which makes it. I understand what you
yeah,
mean,
cable
but
wasn't
as
a
far as
staple
like,
there, but it's like almost everybody that was a kid watched it because that was like the only thing there was to watch besides like if you didn't have cable it was the only thing to watch for the most part. Like there's
okay,
other things, but it's like it's left like a massive cultural imprint on Mexico and Brazil.
yeah, but that's like talking about that now though. Like, anime is big everywhere now, so
Yeah,
why
yeah, I
not?
get that, but
That's like
I'm just saying
like saying that Mexico's not a part of it is like I don't understand. I'm really
I'm not saying
confused on that
Mexico's
whole.
not part of it. I'm saying that when people the pejorative the West is typically Canada, America, Europe, and Australia is what most people think about
Very
it.
confused
It's a,
about that when you say
it's
Europe and Australia in the West part.
yeah.
Like, they're more closer to
So
Japan than we are.
yeah, I get that, but it's because of the like pejorative the West comes from like the people that participated in the Enlightenment.
You're saying most of it's from European culture.
The Enlightenment, yeah, that's where the West, even though it's like not in the Western Hemisphere, is still what the pejorative the West means because it's related to Enlightenment thinking, which I know it sounds stupid. I'm not the one that came up with that definition of the pejorative of the West, but that is like
We shouldn't like we can we're at a point now where we can create our own things and talk about our own things as long as we can explain them. We don't have to say things that other people that we view as stupid.
well, like I understand why they said it.
I don't. I can wholeheartedly don't. As soon as you said Europe and Australia, I'm like, bro, they're more closer to Japan than we are. To even call them like West is almost feels like that hurt my brain. That hurt my brain.
So
Like I would now.
the reason why, like, I get why they call it that is because they're considered part of the Western world because it was majority taken over by. Because remember, back in the day, like when I say back in the day, in the teens, like the 1500s, Europe was like west of most of the world because most of them don't like real like half of the motherfuckers thought the world was flat. They thought it ended when you went too far to the left. Like if you went too far west, you'd fall off the edge of the earth. There's nothing on the other side. So historically, Europe was the West, and that's why when you say the West or like Western culture, you still count Europe in it because they're not talking about the Western Hemisphere for the most part. They're talking about the
They
fact that
were.
historically it's West. When they're saying Western civilization, they're just talking about it being west of Asia for the most part. And like I get why they said it. I don't think it's the best way to say now, but yeah,
I
it's
definitely wouldn't use
and
that to
New
describe
Zealand.
now.
New Zealand. New Zealand's the
Definitely
other
wouldn't use
country I
any of
couldn't
that to
remember the name
describe
of.
right now.
Well, it's just what it's uh the stuff with like Western culture, like those are the places that are considered like Western culture, and then Eastern culture is like most of Asia, or actually all Asia, I guess, and then what's it called? Um, the Middle East is considered because it's east of Europe. It's I don't want to say it's like stupid and makes no sense, like because historically it makes sense, but I feel like it's kind of
Logically, it
outdated
makes
now.
none. You
Like
know, what do you mean kind of? It wholeheartedly is outdated. No, it wholeheartedly is outdated. I thought they were talking about hemispheres this entire time. Not the
no, 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 no,
fucking
no, they're
they
not.
took
Well,
Europe and
so
made it the center of everything. Like what are we talking about? Like
well that's because
hey,
of like what happened.
can we pivot from the history? We're supposed to be talking about anime right now.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
talking about too
So
much of the history.
not to like to be fair, I can tie this all back. So Amestria is based off Germany, and Germany is in Europe. So let's get back to Europe. um, but
Still not
with all that
though.
stuff.
Like we're not talking about anime anymore. We're over here arguing about hemispheres and where Europe and stuff is based.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's not
I get
tying
you.
it back. That's
But
just dipping it back into it.
what I was like trying to get to with that is it's a good starter anime. That's the word I was looking for earlier that I couldn't find. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is I don't even want
I
to say
wouldn't
it's a
call it
good
a starter
starter
either.
anime.
I
It's
wouldn't
a
even call it a starter
fantastic
because
first anime.
I mean it was the same conversation we had
It was
last week
a
about Akame got killed and Your Lie in April and all that, dude. These things are highly like emotionally heavy anime. I wouldn't call them
yeah.
starters,
Well,
but
like
they're easy to understand versus like a Naruto or a One
I
Piece
feel
or an
like
Attack on Titan or like a or even Hunter x Hunter because or JJK because the power system is literally just physics and stuff that we deal with on a regular basis in life. You
so
know,
the
like
reason I would
as soon
call
as
it a good
the
starter is because it shows how good anime can be without having like all the it doesn't have all this like extra like I guess fat's the right word. Like it doesn't have all the extra stuff that like anime culture has become known for. Like we were saying, like
yeah,
it doesn't
of
have like the
course.
fan service. It's just a
The
great
chibi
fucking
shit,
story
yeah.
through and through.
Like
And it's
aura stuff,
concise. It's
like
only 64
the
episodes.
choreography's great.
Yeah,
Like
like
you don't, yeah, like every
it's just a bunch
animation's
of
like highly acceptable.
you
Like,
can
nah,
watch it in a
you
weekend and not be tired. You know,
You would
like you
get
can watch it anytime. You can.
if you was to give Full Metal Alchemist a try, I guarantee you you're hooked to episode 3.
Dude, I'd argue episode two, maybe even episode, depending on how much you like action, it could be episode one with Freeze Alchemist in
Yeah,
it. Like,
yeah,
there's an
yeah.
argument
Oh,
there.
I ain't gonna lie, that episode looked really end ish like end of season
Yeah, yeah,
ish with
yeah. It feels end of season. It also like I like the storytelling at the start because halfway through the first episode, it becomes a flashback and you don't understand it's a flashback until the next episode starts. Like if you've never seen it before,
right,
like it feels
right. It
like
was
it
kind
takes
of
you out for a
seamless.
second and you're just like, wait a second, what the fuck? And then you get the backstory and then it goes into it. So I remember the first time I
Excuse me.
watched this, cause I watched, cause I was watching Full Metal Alchemist, the regular one, when it was coming on, like a long time ago. Like when
I
did
to this day still have never seen the regular one to this day.
so it's not bad.
I
Like
know.
don't get it's very good. It's just after you watch Brotherhood, it's bad.
Yeah, because they just basically take longer to get to the same points. Is basically what I deduce from what people have told me. They just take longer to get to the exact same points that Brotherhood pretty much just kind of gives you. You know, like
Yes
Brotherhood
and
doesn't keep
no.
you waiting long for the next point.
So like the main the main antagonist of the regular Full Metal Alchemist is fucking stupid.
Wait,
Like
they
I can't
changed it?
think of a yeah, cause by the time Brotherhood came out, nobody knew who the fuck was the bad guy. Or before like because you don't figure out who the bad guy is until like what like episode like 4D.
In Brotherhood
Yeah,
or in
until like,
regular one?
or you don't meet. Actually, no. You, I think you might meet him earlier, because they like show a flash of his face for a second in like episode like 5, and then, but it's just showing the. It looks like Ed's father, so you can just be like, oh, that's probably just Ed's dad that they're showing, sort of thing. Like it's a dude that looks like Hohenheim, so you can just be like, but no, basically that one,
I mean, we didn't
the
even know the
regular.
dude's name at that, like, because I know his name, but they haven't really said his
Yeah, they
name
don't
with
say it
this.
until Armstrong goes with them to
Yeah,
meet Granny,
yeah,
to
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 meet
the
Granny,
Rock
yeah,
Mills, and then
when
Granny tells
Armstrong came in.
Hohenheim's name. Yeah, but like it's like if I remember correctly, because it's been a while since I've watched regular Full Metal Alchemist. It's been like 5 or 6 years, maybe even more. It's the main bad guy is Hohenheim's previous lover that's using Philosopher Stones to get revenge on Hohenheim because their previous son died.
So it was basically a retelling of of Izumi's story.
Well, no, Izumi's story is much darker in regular Full Metal Alchemist, because
Ah, so it's
one of the
okay. So
homunculi, the Wrath in regular Full Metal Alchemist, is the miscarried baby.
instead of Sahim, or instead of what's it Fulger, uh Fur Bradley.
Yeah,
Fur Bradley's Wrath,
and
right?
yeah, and
And
his
then Pride
power
is
is
Sahim
that he
when we
can,
get to that.
yeah, and then in the regular Full Metal Alchemist, his ability that he has is he has a better version of
Oh shit.
alchemy than normal alchemists because he has Edward's limbs that are missing.
I see.
So he's basically Kevin 11 before Kevin 11 existed. So
Yeah,
like
I see
that's
what you're
or around the same time, but it doesn't work like the same way. But he's like super powerful, and he hates Izumi because he thinks Izumi abandoned him, and that's why he's wrath. So he's trying to like every time he sees Izumi, he like wants to kill her. Like that's what happens there, and then the homunculus are created in regular Full Metal Alchemist every time somebody attempts human transmutation. It creates a homunculus. And so the like big dun 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 moment is you find out that there's a homunculus of their mom, of Alphonse and Edward's mom. And I can't remember which one she is, which homunculus she is. But it gets darker earlier, but I don't remember it getting as dark as Brotherhood. Like I said, it's been forever since I watched it, but it's it's not bad. It's just Brotherhood is so much better that it feels bad to compare the two, which in
I
my
feel you.
opinion is like cool, but it's just Brotherhood is just so good. It's hard to, but like they start
I
very
didn't even know that.
similar.
So shoot, that's crazy. I didn't know that this whole time that they even had the different antagonists and they went that far deep
Yeah, they're
different with it. I thought,
completely and then
yeah,
Hohenheim, he's like different, and then I don't even remember if Alchemy is in regular Full Metal Alchemist. Like
because
it's
I
been
ain't gonna lie
forever
to
since I
you,
watched it.
like, because when you talk about that, like, no, I ain't, I might gotta watch. I'm probably gonna put it on my list as
Yeah,
things to go
and
watch, but
what's
nah.
great? There's like fourth wall breaking that's not fourth wall breaking, because like they go to the actual real world of 1915 or 16 Germany.
Yeah, that they at, yeah.
Yeah, somehow I don't remember how that happened. It's been forever since I watched it, but it's interesting. Like
But
it's
no,
not. I don't want to.
fucking,
It's
you
don't worry.
talk.
It's not bad, people. Like it's definitely worth watching. It's just Brotherhood. Don't watch Brotherhood before you watch that one if you want to watch that one, because Brotherhood is just a better story. Just,
No,
but if you
you talk
only
about
gonna
how
watch
like
one,
they,
watch Full
but you
Metal
talk about
Alchemist.
how you talked about how like they start because I know I pulled a lot from the start when you told me because I remember asking you the lens right when I was in like the middle of the first episode and bro like you talk about like lens today if we hadn't told y'all when we looking through Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is picking your sacrifice or the right sacrifice will save and the wrong sacrifice will damn you and you see like just in the first episode with the freezing guy because they go through like not his whole story but enough of his story because he was they talk about the war, the Ishvalan war, before we even know what Ishvalans are, any of that. The civil war that started, which we can go into that later. That's really not important for the beginning as much as it will be later. But as far as right now, like he was everybody coming out is from the other side of this war is kind of they didn't come out right. That's what we see. They came out kind of messed up. And they know the military had something to do with it because dudes defecting right now was a part of the military at one point. So again, it's like we look at sacrifice. You don't know right now in this first episode, he's sacrificing his livelihood, his well being, his life to do this thing that he's trying to do to mess up the Fuhrer. And it at simultaneously they're teaching us about simultaneously they're teaching us about alchemy, the transmutation circles. We're getting the flashback like you mentioned earlier and all that at the same time. That's why none of this really feels like extra. They kind of really do it really well with how they put this
Also,
first episode together.
another
Go
thing
ahead.
that I like about is the power system, is it's a hard magic system that feels like a soft magic system, which is really
Yeah, that's
cool.
true.
Cause
That's true
like,
because it
or
is hard in the way it's hard in the way of how specific it is and what it needs to kind of what it can change and stuff like that. But it feels like soft in a way that it's not really like I think I'm trying to say this right. It's not really like they're not going over the top with everything that they're doing, if that makes sense.
yeah. So I'm trying to remember hard like the
The
definition
actual
of
definition,
the
yeah.
thing. Yeah, that way it doesn't sound like I'm just saying something out of my head. Um, it's a not really a theory, but like an explanation that I forgot who the person that put a name on it, but hard magic system is trying to a hard magic system is a magic system with clearly defined rules, limitations, and mechanics, making it
Yeah,
possible to
alchemy.
predict how magic will behave in various situations. And alchemy in this show is one of the best in my opinion. It's between this and Avatar: The Last Airbender. Of the best examples of hard magic, And the cool thing about hard magic is that hard magic, since you know the limitations, it makes it easier to build tension
Yeah,
than with like soft magic. Because like, I guess Naruto would be a soft magic system. JJK,
right.
Hunter x Hunter, those would all be soft magic system because they
Because
can
they have
theoretically
a
do
lot of,
whatever.
yeah, they have a lot of
There's
ways to
no
bend. Yeah,
like
okay,
like
that
there's
makes a lot more sense.
like there's hard rules in those, but you can break the rules
But
if
not
you do
defined
like
rules. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
not
they take
hard
the same
defined
power
rules, not
system.
boundaries.
Like they take a not not the same rule, but they follow the same rule. Like you got to use nin to do it or use curse in it or stuff like that. But it's not like hard magic system where it's just like if you want to use alchemy, you got to take two things of equal mass and or
Oh,
energy to make the thing.
exactly. Because like in the hard system, what it sounds like is that everything's like specific, like how alchemy, because
Pretty
alchemy they
much.
use it when, of course, when Mustangs in rain, he can't use his. And also Mustang shows you that, oh, she filled the water room with water. I can turn it to hydrogen gas. Okay, well, then you get to stuff like JJK and stuff, and they start off really broad, and then there gets more specific if they want to get more powerful. Like Nin and Cursed Energy both got like the heavenly restriction and like the heavenly pact that they got kind of mechanism where they get more specific, but in order to get
Well,
more specific, they gain like this big power. And like you don't really see that like in the hard magic systems because
well,
they
so the
usually like
big
more
thing,
specific and more structured.
so the big thing at soft magic is that it just means there's excuse me, there's no specific defined limitations for a
Yeah,
soft magic system. But with hard ones, it's implicit. Like alchemy is you
and they
can
don't
only
usually.
transmute things, you
Yeah,
can't
and they
transmute people. And then
and in
it
a
becomes
hard magic
borderline
system, they don't
soft
really
system when you
change.
have a yeah, for the most part. But like when you have a
It's like a
philosopher stone,
guide.
it works
Yeah,
closer to a soft magic system than a hard magic system. Like it's still a soft, like a hard magic system, but it's more open. Like you get to break a lot of the limitations if you have a
yeah.
philosopher stone. It's like,
I mean, of course, you talk about playing with physics. That's one of the most open things we could talk about doing,
but
like
I
in the
just
world that we
like
live
how
in, and they
good
do
of
that.
a hard magic
Oh
system
no, they do.
because like it takes less tension to make hard magic systems interesting. Cause like soft magic, it either takes an insane spectacle or insane amount of tension. But with hard magic, it's just like you know when their power can fail because it's clearly defined,
Clearly
which
defined,
just
clearly
makes it
stated. Yep.
way easier
Yep.
to, especially later on in the story when we learn what gives everyone the ability to use alchemy, and then it can be turned
Hmm.
on and off for specific people just because somebody's just like, no, I don't want you using that against me. Like it even adds to the tension, so it makes it easier to build tension with a hard magic system,
And
which
it
just
also
adds on
makes,
to the
because you talk about a lot of stuff too, because it also like I like how just like how you talk about the tension and stuff too. It also in what Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood has done for us, it kind of shaped the story too. Because them using stuff as physics, like how they switched and made it, when they talk about the Philosopher's Stone and how we end up getting more out of that, and how basically alchemy's tied into these different items and these different concepts that they're doing, and how not only is this power system shaping the world, but it's shaping people's view of the world, like Scar, how he views alchemy as just this only God can use it, and anyone else who does it is just like evil and needs to be exterminated. It's like really like that's the beauty of what we talk about a hard magic system. It like not only creates this tension, but it creates these other ideals around the tension. It's just like almost like a big puzzle kaleidoscope kind of thing when you talk about that. But yeah,
yeah. And then to tie this all back into like the lens that we were talking about, the uh the lens that we're watching this from this time. In the description, there's the video that kind of inspired the lens from a channel called After
mm,
School. They take
shout out.
like yeah, shout out to them. Their channel's great. I recommend you go checking them out. They have a video of one of it's like 4 minutes and 50 seconds of one of Dr. Jordan Peterson's lectures on, I believe it's his Maps of Meaning series, if I remember correctly, and it's called Choose Your Sacrifice. And the basic concept is you can't choose not to sacrifice something because you're always going to have to sacrifice something. If you don't choose it, life will choose it for you. And the they don't say it as much in Brotherhood as they do the original, but it's written all over the manga because Alphonse constantly says it in the manga. Is the first law of equivalent exchange is humankind cannot gain anything without first giving something in return. To obtain
Yep.
something of equal value must be lost, which you have to sacrifice something to get something, and you don't know whether or not your sacrifice was good or bad until after you do it. And that's the lens
Yep.
that we're going for with this, because you see it played throughout the story. Like the most
With
hated man in
on every
anime
front.
history, when we get there in a few minutes, sacrifices.
He ain't even gotta say it. He ain't
Yeah,
even
yeah,
gotta
yeah. We're gonna
say his
we're
name.
gonna
Y'all
talk
already know
we're
it.
gonna talk so much shit about him in about 10 minutes. That son
What
got
y'all talking about, man?
or like how about the fact that the brothers uh like Alphonse, a 15-year-old that's just a disembodied soul trapped in a suit of armor, or the fact that Ed had to lose 2 limbs because they attempted to bring their mother back. Stuff like
Yeah,
that.
because
Like,
you took, and then even so far, because like when the monologue, well, not monologue, the montage of events you get right before they went through with the human transmutation, you see that they was learning alchemy and they had to teach. They went through all of that to learn everything before they got to that point. And at that point, when you talk about like sacrifice, that's not really something that you can really teach people. That's something that happens and they kind of have to deal with it as they go. But you see in those moments, especially in the moment where they was trying to bring their mom back and Ed, him not only understanding that he had to pay one toll to know what he knew, but had to pay another toll in order to get his brother back.
yeah, he had
And we
to
see later,
pay his leg to
we
do the human trans, and then he loses his arm. I think it is to
yep, yep,
bring back
to bring his brother
Alphonse.
to put his
Yeah.
yeah put Alphon's soul in the armor. And you talk about like what we talk about how we don't know that sacrifice was good or not. Literally, Ed's only idea was he just wanted to keep his brothers as all he had left. But then you see later on, which we're gonna dive into more, is that Alphonse ends up questioning whether he was actually was a human or whether he's a puppet that ends up 66 end up telling him. But you see the sacrifice through everything, not even just through the brothers, because even in Winry and the grandma
When
in
we
the beginning.
experience the Dr. Rock Bells. Or another good point is just how alchemy works in universe, or at least what they show us of how it works, because you have to sacrifice one thing to turn it into another thing. Like, for example, the dude that's they fight at the beginning, the Freeze Alchemist.
Hmm.
He has to basically to do this super powerful, I don't want to call it a spell, but it's like in every other magic system you'd call it a spell. He basically turns the city into a giant transmutation circle. So he can summon a
Hmm.
giant wall of ice because he's trying to freeze everybody in Central, because he discovered the thing that we learn in what 15 episodes from 22. I think it's like 37 or something like that, when when Ed figures out the truth and we get to go meet my favorite character, which is Lewis's older sister. I think it's around
Oh,
like 37.
I know you're talking about the blonde.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
I
my
know
favorite
exactly what you're
character.
talking about.
But
Yeah, I fuck with Lewis. I fuck with Lewis
yeah,
Armstrong heavy
I
in this.
like the I just like the Armstrongs. They're dope.
Dude, they
They're
are. They are.
I
They're a good
love the
family.
Armstrongs. They're so much fun and they're badass. Or like the ultimate meme of them shaking hands, like the ripped as fuck guys shaking hands. That always
That's
cracks
never
me up.
old.
Yeah.
Never old.
But like we see it, like he has to sacrifice all this prep time and everything to get the super powerful spell, and then when Scar shows up, we see Scar has to sacrifice part of his humanity to just do destruction, like have the destruction part, because it's very interesting. Like as it goes through these first 22 episodes, we get bits and pieces with Scar also, where he's having to deal with the fact that he's basically sacrificing the identity of his people to basically turn them into terrorists in everybody else's mind, and he has to struggle with that because he understands that's what he's doing at a certain point, like in
You
the
talking about like
episode 22.
they
Yeah,
explain that so explicitly, like
like when
and
Winry almost
beautifully.
shoots him, he's just
Yeah,
like, fuck, this is destroying, like I'm sacrificing the perception of my people to be able to take my revenge. Like he doesn't explicitly say it, but his teacher just straight up says it. Like your cycle of hatred is just gonna make people hate your kind even more.
And the way they spell it out, because the way it's the event that they use right before they talk about Winry's parents that did it for me. It was when he tells him about what he did to old F boy and the daughter. When you walked in there and did that to them, it's like, yeah, you took her though. You took killed her when she was an abomination and on the life she had left, but you didn't really sit and think about her and what she could have done and then turn around and flip it, because he Scar ends up rebuttaling that in a good way, saying like, you know as well as I know that she was suffering. There was really much nothing that would have been done for her. You knew that she would any life she would have left would have been hell for her. You as a person who's been through hell should have known that. But then to flip it into the next stop, well, the Rock Bells, they saved you. They spent their life and spent their time trying to make sure your life was saved, and you repaid their kindness with death. And you didn't even look in that, and that's when it all pivots and comes together for
Yeah.
Scar. Just like how you say with his teacher giving him that moment, your hatred for what your hatred would only breed more hatred, and he sees it personified right in front of him
And then
with
like
Winry.
the big thing is you could argue like it's somewhat excusable. Like it's not excusable, like that he killed people, but it's like he clearly wasn't him when it happened. You know what I mean? Like he was
He
having a
was
PTSD induced flashback,
coming to
and
reality, everything coming back to him
he
at
was
one point,
hallucinating that he was surrounded by alchemists and stuff like that. And
still in war.
yeah,
Yeah,
he just happened to see two people with blue eyes, and that's what the
the
people that
same
just killed
enemies
his
that he
brother did.
just
Yeah,
yeah, he was
and they
just in
say
life or
his
death situation, seeing those people with blue eyes, and they were all enemies to him, and he would have to. His mind was still on that. I have to kill these people if I want to live.
and then he just
So seeing
realized
them
like
saving his life, yeah.
and then he sees like his brother's arm and he thinks his brother's there and then it realizes that no, I'm moving that arm, like my thoughts are moving this arm, so that
And
means
then
that somehow I
simultaneously
gotta move that arm.
realizing, and then you can
Yeah,
imagine simultaneously realizing how he lost that arm, and then that memory coming back to him, and then putting together that his brother must have gave him that arm. He probably put all that shit together in that same PTSD flashback that he showed us.
yeah,
So
which
all
just
that at one point, yeah, it's
all adds
definitely,
together.
you can see
It all
hatred
just
breeding more
adds
hatred.
together into like this pot, like this crazy concoction of anger that leads to him lashing out. And you also get the nice moment when you see her dad, Winry's dad, is attempting to save the mom in his last moment.
Hmm.
Like he shields her
Yeah,
from the
he
attack,
sees. Yeah, he grabs her. Yeah,
and then
yeah.
shields her from it. But you're not gonna like we saw Scar is clearly like physically greater than a normal person, because he beat the shit out of like six people in this flashback. He beat the shit out of six people that were all holding Garans, and like kicking someone
He
into
didn't
a
have. He
wall,
wasn't
cracked
using
a
alchemy
wall.
either.
Yeah, so he's clearly like we see from several characters that some people in this universe are superhuman. They're like basically Captain America. Like several people like Lynn and them, like they're clearly above the normal dexterity and strength level of a normal human. Like at one point, friggin' like a good example is Lynn can jump like 2 second story windows and stuff like that. Like not even counting like the homunculus stuff. So getting into that part, I think it's time we talk about the elephant in the room, or I should say the bastard in
Yeah,
the room. So a
bitch.
massive example of sacrifice, and just because you sacrifice some you chose the sacrifice doesn't mean it's a good thing, and you don't know if it's a good thing until later. Shell Tucker's bitch ass.
Oh, motherfucking Tucker. Literally, there was a famous meme, and I call it famous because it never leaves my brain, so it's famous to me. They say you can get $1 billion if you fight any anime character and you have to win. You and you think I ain't come in Shao Tucker quick as hell? Oh, I would run the ones with
Oh,
this
and
dude
it's
for
not
that
even,
billion for
yeah,
free. I
and
ain't even
I'm
say
not
for the
even,
billion, for the
yeah, yeah,
free.
yeah. I do it for free.
Shit.
Like,
What you
I do it for
mean?
free.
And then I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. Who is this dude? Who is this dude?
So,
What strength qualities he exhibited in this show? You
well,
know
he
what?
might
Let me
have
not.
some. He might. They
No,
didn't
I'm beating
show
his ass.
anything.
I'm beating his
So, but
ass. I don't
they
care.
didn't say I couldn't bring
You
a
don't have to
gun,
smack
shoot
him.
him in the kneecaps. Like they didn't say I couldn't do that. But to the point, so Shao Tucker is a state alchemist. I forgot his nickname because in my head his nickname is that bitch. Uh,
I don't remember what his nickname
it's like
was.
the
Like
biological alchemist or something.
something
No,
like that.
sewing life. It's the
Bioalchemist,
sewing life.
the Sewing Life Alchemist.
Yeah, he's the sewing life alchemist. That's what it was.
Okay
God, I
then.
hate this man so much. Okay, so he's a bioalchemist who apparently a couple of years ago successful. Oh yeah, he doesn't die in regular Full Metal Alchemist. Also, I almost forgot about that. He gets turned into a chimera by the bad guys. I almost forget about that in regular Full Metal Alchemist. In case you wanted to watch Full Metal Alchemist and see him get beat up more, you can see him get beat up more. Uh, but since they're trying to find the Philosopher's Stone, Ed and Alphonse, they go to him since he apparently made a chimera that could understand human speech. And since his research is not doing much, he's afraid that he's gonna be like kicked out of the state alchemist program. So he uses alchemy to combine his daughter, who is how old is she? She's like I want to say she's 5. I want to say she's
Thought
5.
she was 8. Thought she was 8, but she could be younger than that. Yeah, I mean, she's really young. She's very, very, very young. Leave it at that.
I want to say because she's older than Gracia's kid, Maze and what's it called? She's 4. Okay, that makes it slightly worse. So
So,
turns takes the 4 year his 4 year old daughter and splices her with his dog, and obviously that's fucking heinous. Like, oh my
and
god, holy shit.
all because he was in the process of failing and losing his license if he didn't like do something.
Yeah,
But
he
it's
had to
like,
do
bro, you
something
did
greater than
that.
lifetime, and he creates a chimera that can speak and understand human speech because it's the brain of his 4 year old daughter in the body of a dog, basically. And in that, we can see that's the sacrifice that damns you because he sacrifices his family and you could argue his soul just for recognition and the
Humanity.
ability to keep doing his studies. And then you learn shortly after that. I don't remember them explicitly saying it in Brotherhood, but they explicitly say it in the regular Full Metal Alchemist. Is that since he did it to his daughter, they find out, like they imply it in Brotherhood, but they straight up say that it was his wife that he turned into the other Chimera
No, they
in
say
Full
it.
Metal
They
Alchemist.
say it.
Oh, they did.
They say it.
Okay, I couldn't.
Edward says it.
I might have
Edward's
looked
the one that
away,
points it out. Edward's the one
but
that
yeah,
points out, said, "Oh, so the first one you did what failed was your wife, and now you turned around and did it to your daughter." That's what he said. Nah, and bruh, because I forgot like a point about his wife in the whole thing when I was rewatching, and they brought his
yeah. They
wife
say
back
like
into it,
I
and
can't
I was
remember
like,
if they said like she ran away or what. Like
"Yeah, she
she
ran away.
abandoned him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And so
she
it made
ran away.
everyone feel bad for him because he was having to raise a daughter by himself while being in the military. But
Yep,
yeah, that's one of the big ones that I see about through this lens because he basically sacrifices part of what makes him human. He sacrifices the thing that he's supposed to protect the most, like, which is why the anime community thinks of him as one of the worst people ever. Like the meme that you said, like you
oh
get
yeah,
$5 million to fight someone, and I'd beat the fuck out of Shao Tucker for free, like that meme.
just for the opportunity,
Just to show, because he does
just for
the
the
exact
opportunity.
opposite of his responsibility. And you could argue that you're supposed to sacrifice for your responsibilities because that's what the definition of responsibility is. Like not like
Yeah,
the written definition, but to carry out your responsibilities, you have to sacrifice something. Like if it's your responsibility to do something, you have to sacrifice the ability to not do something else. So he sacrifices his responsibility and you could argue his soul and the thing that makes him human because after the moment that he realized what happened, They're just like, you're not human. You're a monster. You always have been. And you can see like Shao Tucker like shows that he's probably actually a psychopath because he seemingly feels nothing over what happened to his daughter. He's more
he
scared
feels no
about
remorse
running into
about him.
Scar.
Yeah, he feels no remorse about what actually happened to his daughter. He feels so victorious that he was actually able to complete it, but not the fact that he lost his daughter to complete it. It's like he didn't care. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
he actually negs because he lost his dog and his daughter.
Well, he also lost his soul, so he like negged way hard,
Yeah,
and then he
so it's
immediately dies. Which I'm sorry, it was not slow enough. That's my one complaint about what Scar did. Just like Scar, you should have made it slow as fuck. Like if I was Scar,
uh,
I would have been like pinky, pinky toe, pinky toe with what I deconstruct. Like I'd just be going down the list into, but that's how I would have done it because Shao Tucker deserves so much worse. He deserves he deserves so much worse. He deserves to meet the truth, and the truth slowly unraveling, putting back together, unraveling, putting back together, unraveling, put back together. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm just thinking about how much I fucking hate Shao Tucker.
he
And
probably ain't the
then,
only one.
yeah, and then we get to the stuff with laboratory, the fifth
Fifth
laboratory. I
lab,
almost called it laboratory number
fifth
five.
lab.
The fifth laboratory, which is where we get the existential crisis between Alphonse, where he thinks he could be a puppet because Barry the Chopper put it in his head. I know he's called like a number, but I think it's funnier to call him Barry the
Six
Chopper
six.
because that name's so fucking stupid. Barry the Chopper. And we also get the stuff with Ed, where you see some of the sacrifice stuff come back in, because he legit sacrifices his arm's ability to work to do stuff, but then you see him sacrificing his arm's ability to move, ends up fucking him because there's a little like throwaway gag from the previous episode of when realizing she forgot a screw.
Yep.
And then that ends up being the fact that he is willing to fight when he shouldn't is the thing that saves his life because his arm starts working at the exact moment that MV would have killed him if he kept trying to fight. So MV takes the opportunity to knock him out, and we see like the sacrifice of him wanting to keep fighting is the thing that saves him in like more than one way because it shows they don't ever join them, but it also saves his life. And then I love the little thing that they have, the little discussion Alphonse has with him, where him and Alphonse are arguing, and it's where Ed almost sacrificed himself, and Alphonse is like, survival is the only way, Ed. Live on, learn more about alchemy. You could find a way to get our bodies back and help people like Nina. You can't do that by dying. I won't allow you to abandon the possibility of hope and choose a meaningless death. Because he wouldn't
Ooh,
run away when Alphonse set him up to run away. And that moment, I think, just shows off like the lens even more. Because just like, how dare you sacrifice yourself for nothing? How dare you choose the wrong sacrifice? Is basically what he's telling Ed. Like, you're not allowed to pick the wrong sacrifice. Because me sacrificing myself isn't the wrong sacrifice because I'm still a soul. We can fix that later. But we can't fix you if you die. Like, that stuff can't be fixed. Because, like, you could. Like, we don't even know if Alphonse would die as soon as the blood cell's broken. Like, it's implied that he would die, but we don't know for sure. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know
you
if
don't
they
know what
could
actually
bind it
happened
to
to
it. Yeah,
Spring.
we don't know if Edward could be like, okay, sacrifice my other arm to fix it, sort of thing. You know what I mean? We don't know that for sure. It's implied that you couldn't do it, but it's not 100% set in stone. And I think it just shows off real well that like you can't just have a sacrifice and the sacrifice be a good thing because you sacrificed it. Like what most people want to say, like if you sacrifice something, you did a good thing. Not necessarily. Sometimes your sacrifice is selfish, like Shao Tucker's sacrifice. Sometimes it's just self-serving, like there when Edward tried to sacrifice himself and refuses to move. Stuff like that, which I just think is chef's kiss. And we get the stuff with Izumi where we don't know exactly what Izumi sacrificed to save her miscarriage baby, but
They
it's
just say her
implied that
internal
it's some of
organs.
her internal organs. Like we don't know what ones, and she was sick already, so it's kind of surprising that she's still alive. But I don't remember at any point do we know the exact organs or if it's just pieces. Let me see. Metal. I know it's some of her internal organs, but I don't think it says what the gate took from her. Okay, apparently the implication that most people agree with is that it basically gave her a hysterectomy. Is the internet's um what's it called? The internet's belief.
Hypothesis.
Yeah, the main hypothesis, which would make sense why she couldn't have another kid if it took her her ability to have, which is like you gotta admit that is super fucking like fucked up by the truth.
Yeah,
Like
kind of sinister.
you don't want to like your baby dies, so we're gonna take away your ability to have babies, so now you can never have a kid. It's just like what the fuck, dog? Like that's fucking dark. Like when you think about it, that's dark. But as a character though, Izumi's super cool, especially when Izumi's just like, I know why you lost your arm and leg. What the fuck's wrong with you? You're expelled. And it turns out the entire reason she expelled them was so that they can ask questions that they couldn't ask while she was a teacher, which is cool. Which is another thing that you could argue like that's a sacrifice. Their sacrifice led to them having the right sacrifice with the Zumi because it means that they got expelled, which means they're allowed to ask things that they could only ask as equals instead of students, which is like another cool little like read between the line things.
Hmm.
And then after that we get a little bit of their backstory with Izumi, where they basically have to live on an island for what is it, a month? It's either a
Yeah,
month
a
or
month.
two, and
It
they
was a
have to
month.
basically survive without alchemy. And it should be stated they were absolute child prodigies when it came to using alchemy. They could make complex shapes and toys and stuff when they were little kids. Hell, they even successfully did humans transmutation as how 8 and 9, right? Or were they 10 and
Yeah,
11?
somewhere around there.
Was Edward he did human transmutation? 11 and 10. Okay, 11 and 10. So, like, they clearly have to be prodigies to be able to pull that off at that age. And then we get the little fight with Greed, which is pretty cool. But we see what Bradley's willing to sacrifice, which you see his willingness to sacrifice his humanity, which seems like it's a big deal that he's willing to sacrifice his humanity, and then you learn a couple episodes later, or no, you learn the same episode. The entire reason that he's willing to sacrifice his humanity is because he doesn't have any. Because we see his eye when against Greed.
Yeah, you talk about for Fury
Bradley,
Bradley when we
yeah,
first see his
Fury
eye.
Bradley,
Yeah,
yeah.
when you see him with his
When
all
he's
seeing
beating
eye.
the fuck out of Creed or Greed, because he beats the dog mess out of Greed. The fights with Fury
Yeah,
Bradley are
shit, dog.
dope, because the eye is
Oh, dude,
OP.
Fury Bradley made it. Fury Bradley made that whole twist made the freaking made everything really suspenseful.
Because it's
Because
basically
of course they
Sharingan
haven't
with no downside.
right, and even the part we're at right now in the story, they only think it's Fury Bradley. They don't really know
Yeah, like they know something's wrong with the government, and so the implication is Fuhrer Bradley because he's the
is a
leader of
part of
it.
it.
Yeah, but it's crazy because the that interaction because it's just three Tomei Sharingan, but you when you see how power like getting into like the power of that, like when you with a bunch of normal humans having three Tomei Sharingan is OP as fuck.
Oh yeah,
Especially like when you have a healing factor stronger than Wolverine's. Like the idea of his healing factor, like it's insane how strong it is. Like how strong he is. And then we gotta talk about, in my opinion, the saddest part of the story. Period.
oh yeah.
Sad
Colonel
start.
Hughes, Brigadier General Hughes is.
Yeah, we see the sacrifice of Hughes, and it's super cool how they did Hughes' sacrifice too, because it. I forgot how early it happened in the show. Like in my head, I was thinking it's like episode 10. No, I think it's like episode 6. Like or what episode? Oh no, it is 10. I was thinking it was like yeah, that's why I got it was thinking it was so late. He dies in episode 25 of the original Full Metal Alchemist anime. That's what it is. That's why I was thinking it was so late. That makes sense. Yeah, in episode 10, we get in my opinion, saddest part because we get the implication that May Hughes, who's one of the best characters in the show, the Flame Alchemist, his they call him his best friend, but we don't know if it's his best friend. But the implication is his best friend, Colonel Mays Hughes, or not. What's his title? Is it Lieutenant Colonel?
Brigadier General.
No, I'm sorry. Before he dies.
Yeah, Lieutenant Colonel.
Yeah, Lieutenant Colonel May Hughes. He's a normal dude in the military that's obsessed with his wife and daughter. Which, let's be real, I hope everyone finds that at one point in life. As long as you're a good dude, I hope everyone finds that because you see, like he's so happy and everything. Like
Oh
you're just
yeah,
like, man,
all he
this
wants to
dude's
talk
got it
about is his wife
made.
and shit.
Yeah, and you're
All
just
he
like,
ever wants
man,
to talk
this
about.
dude's got it. He's got a job that he likes. He's got good friends, and then he's got a good family. And then he's helping the Elric brothers find everything out, and he's sacrificing time that he could spend with family, working late, trying to unravel a conspiracy. And then we see he gets like a we don't see the light bulb, but he basically has a light bulb moment and figures it out. And he gets visited by Lust. Lust stabs him, and then
No,
he
envy,
runs
envy.
away. Huh?
No, no, you're right. You're right. Lust stabs him first, and envy
Yeah,
finishes.
yeah. Lust is the one that stabs him, and then Envy's the one that chases him. Um, but we see the he could have stopped and called on the normal phone, right?
But
But
he
the
didn't
thing
because
that's
he
he
realized that it might be
sacrificed
tapped.
that. Well, it's not just that because it was gonna get tapped no matter what. The implication is that the chick there would have died. I believe is the implication.
That
If he would have stopped
he
there,
thought about her too. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. He put her in the same mix with. Yeah, it might be tapped, but even if it be tapped, because in that point, it being
because
tapped wouldn't
Mustangs is
be the
gonna be tapped
same.
anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So he like the information getting the Mustang is the priority, but in that time, her being right there is like, no, if she hears what I say, she's gonna be targeted too, because I just
Yeah,
got targeted for what I know.
yeah.
So let me
So if
move.
he's that's what I infer every time is that he's doing it just to save this random person's life who's I don't even think we learn her name. She's in it like two scenes. And so he goes to call from a payphone and then Envy shows up pretending to be one of Louis Armstrong's men
Lieutenant Ross.
and shoots him. And I love like we see how like at first you're just like it's kind of crazy that Hughes figured it out without talking to anybody, but you see like it shows off how smart he is. by seeing her face for 1 second, he's just like, "You're not fucking Ross. Like, get the fuck out of here, weirdo." Like immediately,
Yeah,
because
especially
she
something
forgets the
some
mole.
small facial expression like a mole.
Yeah, he just went like, "You don't have the mole. Like, what the hell?" And then he makes fun of Envy, and that pisses Envy off. Also, fuck Envy, by the way. She's my least favorite of the homunculi. Or he,
Who?
Envy.
Oh, of course.
Especially like when we get to see Envy's true form, where it's just like this little ugly lizard. Like, fuck Envy. That two-faced little bitch. I'm sorry, I'm talking some bunch of shit about Envy because Mayhew's was awesome. But shoots Mayhew's, and it's just like, in my opinion, a good like tie-in to the whole theme of the sacrifice, because we see how much Hugh sacrifices, and it looks like we don't learn for like 20 episodes whether it was one that damned him or one that was like it was the right sacrifice or not. And then it also forces the
Excuse me.
homunculi to sacrifice making a move, and we don't know if their sacrifice was right or not for them. But seeing how it's a shonen anime with a good ending, pretty sure people can infer if it was the right sacrifice or not. And then we get the visiting when Ed has to go to Ishvala. Well, first we got the Rosses breaking out of prison, meeting Lynn, but I don't really think there's a lot to talk about with Lynn, except for like Lynn's just obsessed with eternal life, which is like a bad idea for obvious reasons. We learn what takes. Uh,
His sacrifice, I mean, you can see the only thing is small, but you see what his sacrifice is him he runs into Fury Bradley. Um, but I
yeah,
don't
he
think how
tries to
I
sacrifice,
can't
but that the chase
and
doesn't end yet.
Long
Yeah,
Fawn
but that
sacrificing her
chase,
arm in order for him to get away.
yeah. Well, I think the arm sacrifice happens in episode 23.
Okay, so yeah, that's the part. Okay, I'm with you now.
Yeah, if I remember correctly,
So that's
it
something we'll
happens in
definitely cover
23.
later. But
Um,
yeah,
oh, yeah, I almost forgot to say the how to make a philosopher's stone is it called you use a human soul to make it, which is like the ultimate sacrifice if you think about it. Like using somebody's soul means that they don't, because we learn there is something after death in that universe. We don't know what it is, but we know there's something after death
and
because
death can
there's
be
a
manipulated.
literal, yeah, there's a literal personification of God called the truth, which is kind of crazy that it's called the truth because God, like the Christian God's called the truth or the logos or the word, which implies that it's supposed to be like their version of the Christian God, which implies that it's also the Ishvalan God if you think about it, because the Ishval is clearly based off the Middle East. Like when you see it, hell, there's even a place called Xerxes, close to where
Xerxes,
the
yeah,
Ishvalan area was, and Xerxes is the name of a Persian king, the one from like the the Battle of Metropoli, or however you say that word, the one where the story of 300 comes from, and he was the emperor of Persia, and Persia is modern day Iran. So like they're clearly based that part's clearly based off the Middle East. So and the implication there is that the truth that you meet with alchemy, that like gives you the truth about alchemy, the implication is it's also the fallen god, similar to how like in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they're supposed to all be worshiping the same God, even though it has different characteristics. But that's like each of them believe it's the same
yeah, and
God.
they point that
Like
out
they
when they
believe
both
it's the
talk
same
about
God.
they both talk about that when they talk about the East Sage and the West Sage when they both got to
Yeah.
Xerxes because um yeah, Edward talked about he brought up the myth is what they called him. They called it the East Sage, and then the dude from Ishmael simultaneously said the same thing. I was like, oh, we believe in this
Which
other
also
tale
is
too about the
a
West
super
Sage.
interesting other like thematic tie to religion, because if you remember um the story of what's his name, Isaac, right? The I can't remember who is Isaac's dad. Lot's uncle. I'm trying to remember his dad. Abraham's son. Um, he's the one that goes on to like the found the tribe of Israels and stuff like that. The like he's the one that fathers like whose like descendants end up becoming the 12 tribes of Israel and everything. So he goes one way, but then uh he has Abraham, I think it's Esau, is the one that becomes is the lineage that ends up becoming the Islamic world, if I remember correctly. Abraham makes son. Ishmael, that's his other one, my bad. That's it, Ishmael. And like different things of it. He's the yeah, Abraham's son Ishmael is considered the father of Islam, and he was a prophet, and he's an ancestor of the prophet Muhammad. So it's like another like the stage of the East and West thing also ties into that because we see Hohenheim is like the father of alchemy, and then father is gonna be the father of like the person that brings alchemy later in the story. So it also ties into the like religious undertones since like the fallen part is clearly steeped in like some religious inferences. You know what I mean? Which I think it's just it just shows how much. How do you say your name? Is it Akiara?
About
The the woman's name that wrote Full Metal Alchemist? Akiwara. Yeah, Akiwara. Which is also another crazy thing because at the time this came out, there wasn't that many female mangakas. But it turns out that one of them just happens to, or the two that I can name off the top of my head, just so happen to be two of the greatest mangakas that ever lived, which I think is crazy. Wait, like it's just a, because remember at the time, it's like her and like no one knew she was a girl at first. Like I remember that when this was first coming on, people thought it was crazy. And then there's the Naoka Takeuchi, that girl, uh, or the lady that's married to the dude that wrote Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter, that wrote Sailor Moon. Those were like the only two major ones I could think of that come to mind. Especially like at the time with like how Japanese culture was. It's crazy how big it became, written by a female author, just because that stuff didn't tend to blow up in Japan. Which just goes to show like how well it was written, is what I would argue. But another thing that's interesting is it Akiwara never said whether or not it was expressly influenced by it, but the Ishvalan Civil War has a lot of ties to the Gulf War because it would have been written shortly after the Gulf War happened, since the first volume or the first chapter was published in 2001, and the Gulf War happened in I think it's 94 is when the Gulf War started. Gulf War. Oh, I started in 90. My bad. But it's the war with Iraq, who was led by Saddam Hussein in a coalition against Iraq, and then the United States, like where the story from Black Hawk Down comes from and stuff. But there's just a lot of interesting, cool stuff that comes from like it seeming clearly based on that just because of war in the Middle East and everything. But they probably also took from a lot of the like Patton's battles during World War II, probably. I would imagine they took a lot of inspiration from that too. The stuff that happened in Northern Africa and the Middle East with the German forces versus American forces. But it's just really cool how they tie it all together. And then we jump from that spot to the with the where Alphonse is by himself after Ed goes to meet Lieutenant Ross's after they find out that she faked her death because of Mustang's sacrifice. Mustang sacrifices his future career prospects because we learn Mustang really, really, really wants to be Fuhrer. That's like his entire thing.
Like his
He's
whole
based his
goal, yeah.
yeah, like that's like his. It's implied to be like his childhood dream is to become Fuhrer because he wants to make his country better. And especially like you see like how he doesn't show it a lot, but how much fighting fucked him up. Especially
Hmm.
like when he fights Lust and he's just like, yeah, she got cremated. He's just like, I hate that smell. Also, I almost forgot to talk about one of my all-time favorite lines in anime with the Mayhew's thing. I wrote it down and completely skipped over it. The when Mustang and Hawkeye are standing at Mayhew's grave, and Mustang says it's a terrible day for rain, and he starts crying. Dude, that's so good. That's such a good line, and it even ties into the fact that Hawkeye has talked about him being useless on a rainy day, and since they both agree that it's a rainy day because he's crying, he's useless that day because he's too depressed since he lost one of his closest friends, so he's useless then too. Like that day he's gonna be useless too.
Yep.
Like the
It's a
metaphor
bad
that
day
great.
for
It's
him.
dude, that's so fucking good. Like whoever
They
wrote
set it
that,
up. Yeah, they set it
like
up.
whoever wrote that, like you deserve an award. That's so fucking
No, they
good.
set it up because they set it up because of how you think about each time before then when May, or not on May, but when Mustang was in a water situation, they overplayed how useless he was every time. Even
Yeah,
to the point where they even put like monologues and stuff on him. No, they played that up. They played that moment up highly. Anyone who's paying attention at that moment and it got to that, nah, that's just like your fruition coming. Everything you planned coming to a fruition moment. Like, bruh, nah. I was right there with you when I just
like I
went.
love that
Like,
so much.
they
Like
set
that
that up
scene.
so perfectly, so perfectly.
Yeah, it's
Because
just
even so, because his lieutenant, the one who's next to him, was always be the one pointing out. Even so far as to bring a suitcase with extra gloves in it for
yeah,
him
Hawkeye.
in case one got wet. Literally to go that far, and even when the fuck, because she's the one who usually points out that he's useless. And he's the one on the flip side when this happens says it's a bad day for rain. And she's the one who looks at him and is like, "What are you talking about?"
And she refused to call him useless in that instance too, because she understands how much he's hurting.
Even
Beautiful,
in that state,
beautiful
even in
writing.
that state, it's like saying refusing to call him useless is not even the thing. It's like it's she refuses to say it at that point because it wouldn't even be so much as like he's hurting. It would be exactly the way he's feeling.
Yeah,
It
because he
would be the
couldn't stop
wrong
it,
time. It would be
and
the
he
wrong time.
because of the only reason they didn't get a talk in his last moments was because of what's it called,
His
all the
delay
extra military stuff that happened. And then we
involved.
get
Yeah,
the absolutely heartbreaking thing with his daughter, where it's just like, why are they putting dirt on daddy? He's got so much
he
work to
still
do.
has work to do.
Yeah,
Which lets you
dude,
know
that
just how much his family was oriented. When the kids understand the work, you know how much the family's oriented into it.
like fuck,
'Cause
dude.
we see in other animes uh that are I'm gonna say it. We see other animes that corrupt here don't like Boruto that's got that exact same problem with the kid not understanding the work. So
Well, like the
yeah,
Boruto's
I
different
know.
though.
I I know. It's way
It's not
different. I
because
know
it's
it's way different.
bad. I don't dislike it because it's bad. I
No, they
dislike it because
misportrayed.
like It's because they trample on people that like I
Naruto's.
feel like are my friends. You know, because I grew up with them. Like I've been watching them since I was like, well, fucking what, 7? Kid Naruto came on Cartoon Network when I was like before I was in middle school.
But
So
nah,
I'm gonna
like to
say
get
like
the
third grade.
when the kid doesn't understand the work, it's kind of more difficult. Is what I was more so pointing at, because
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
kind of Boruto kind of points does. Because
yeah. I get
when
what you're
Boruto
saying
doesn't
now.
understand the
I get what
Hokage,
you.
it made everything more difficult. And now
Yeah.
like her, the kid understanding the work and understanding that it's important, and that her dad actually played a big role in his importance, and want him to continue that importance
Or
so much is that she,
like it gets even worse when we see Winry go to the house for the first time.
yeah, they that was a good writing moment too. How they played and they kept Elric and
Where
them
she
out of
goes,
it, including Winry.
and then she goes, like, is Gracia's the wife's name? I'm forgetting the daughter's name.
Alexia,
Ah,
starts with an
crap. I
L, I
feel,
think. Elise, Alicia, I don't know.
damn. I feel so. I feel like just because he's just calling her his daughter all the time, but he said Alicia, Alicia.
Yeah,
Just
Alicia,
because he says Gracia all the time, so that's why like I knew Gracia's name by heart. Apparently, it's spelled multiple ways based on the translator.
probably so.
It's actually the that's actually makes it super interesting because so it's spelled Elicia, but in other versions, like depending on the translation, it's spelled Elysia, which is interesting because when it's spelled with the Y S, it's that comes from the word Elysium, which is the Greek version of heaven, like Greek mythology's version of heaven.
Yes, yes, Elysium.
So it
Yeah, I
implies
know what you're
that
talking about.
like
That actually is
which is actually super cool that that's where the name comes from. I didn't realize that's where the name comes from. Alicia comes from because it's literally Maze Hughes named his daughter his angel.
yep.
Like legit just named it. Like that's actually pretty cool. Like seeing
What
the
did you
like
feel? And then taking and spin it some more, because when we just talked about what you just talked about, what the state of life in which Hughes was at, how he was always at a state where all he talked about with his wife and all he talked about
mhm.
with his daughter. You can literally essentially say in life he already found his heaven.
Yeah,
So
and that's
essentially
his
you hope
daughter.
he,
Yeah.
yeah. And then
And he
so
found the
bruh,
Grace,
so
which is his wife because her name's
there
Gracia.
you go. And then think about the stuff he was doing too. He always stuck his neck out there to help people, which made, bro, oh my God, which made what his wife said after Ed went to her even more freaking beautiful. Bro, when he goes to her and he apologizes to her for basically bringing their family into basically his own endeavors, because it was the information that he had got to about the Philosopher's Stone that made Hughes pretty much lose his life. She tells him, she, I wrote it down now. I'm actually like excited about it. Freaking when she tells him, hold on, let me find it. Let me find it. Let me find it. It was up here. It was up here. It was up here. It was up. No, not that. Yeah. So, bruh, basically, bruh, the turning point of character, like it was crazy because she basically he basically apologized for bringing them into that. And when you talk about Maze as a character, that was basically his whole thing was helping people. Even when he first met Winry
Yeah.
or and first met all like he literally brought him
Yeah,
into
he was
his
just
house
like,
without
you're
even knowing
staying
who
at
they
my
were.
house. I don't care what you say. Is legit what
Literally.
he
And
does.
it's literally and bro. So in those last moments, bro, she tells him like, don't you understand that what you were doing was everything that her husband was doing. She was basically saying like don't you stop your endeavors now. Don't you quit now, because when if you quit now, my husband's death would have been for nothing. And it's almost like, bro, she accepted the fact of what Hughes was doing. Because they also mentioned earlier, in order to do alchemy, you have to understand where the consequence is going to go and accept every consequence that's going to happen. Bruh, that's the whole foundation of their relationship, bruh. She accepted every consequence that Maze Hughes ever did and ever thought about. Because you go back while I mentioned Winry, you brought somebody in your house that you don't know. If your wife accept that, bruh, the consequence, everybody understand the consequence bringing somebody around you don't know. They might do something you don't like. You as a person who you not worried about that, that's both of y'all. Like she accept the consequence. So to tell him, bro, don't quit. Like this is what Maze would have wanted you to do. He would wanted you to keep going. He would wanted you to not stop because he died in order for you to keep going, bruh. And it, bruh, bruh.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like I didn't even realize, like with her name, that the original spelling of the name was that one until I looked. Like, was this like what's her name again? I was just like, holy shit. It just shows you like how much work the author put into it. It's even crazier because like all these things with the naming conventions, they're uh they're like traditionally Western names, right? Like Western civilization names, like European style names. So the fact that the author came up with it in like the late 90s with like not good internet in a place that had
Same
like
thing I
none of
feel
those
about all that.
names, like that's just crazy that they put like the amount of work that goes into doing something like that pre good internet, pre being able to look all that stuff up is crazy. I'm
Free
sure the amount
technology,
of
pretty much.
yeah, and it's not even like a major thing. It's just like a character's name, and this is like what it actually means. Like that, so much work went into that. Like those little bits, which is awesome.
Yeah,
And then after that, we get the it's not one of the best fights in anime, but it's one of the most satisfying fights in anime, in my opinion. Is what it immediately leads into. The Lust versus Mustang.
yeah, that was pretty satisfying.
Just like it's not like there's not
It's not
much
as
fighting that even
satisfying as Envy versus
happens.
Mustang, but
But yeah, but that's
Envy
different. That
versus
just
Mustang is a little bit more. I'm ready for that.
yeah
That's one
yeah
of my
that
favorites.
that one goes hard. But just the thing where we see like how smart Mustang is, like how high his fight IQ. By the way, I'm gonna have a little 2 minute what's it called tangent on a call out for the anime community. Please stop calling it battle IQ. It's called fight IQ. It's a real thing that exists. It's what we call it when someone fights really smart in an MMA or boxing match. It's called fight IQ. Please stop calling it battle IQ. Okay, I'm done with that tangent. So we see how
1 2 minutes.
high.
I
I
thought you
told
was
it
gonna
was
go a
gonna
little
be
bit
real
more.
quick, but it bothers me every time I see battle IQ, and it's just like that's not a real thing. But fight IQ is, so please use the correct terminology. You know what I mean? It just kind of
Yeah,
bothers me because it's like you're trying to sound smart by saying battle IQ, which is something that doesn't exist, but fight IQ is something that exists, and it's also used to describe military excellence. Like when someone makes a really smart decision in a combat scenario, it's still fight IQ. So it's just a little tangent I had to go on. Please stop calling it that. Call it fight IQ. If that's the one thing I leave in the anime community, I'll be happy. One thing I've imparted on the anime community, be happy. But we see like Colonel Mustang's fight IQ is insane in the fight. Like he even like from the moment he's just like, well, we're gonna lose this fight. We're covered in water. She thinks that she got the best of me. Excuse me. So instead, I'm just gonna turn all the water into hydrogen gas since it's super flammable and basically makes a cremation
but
bomb. And then he
one of my
immediately
things
grabs
that
her philosopher's stone. It's just like I can use this to heal him, like stuff like
is
that.
one of the things that I like about the fact of this hard power system that they've come into. Usually, it's a trope that they kind of break because usually in hard power systems, is there somebody who's specified to a certain thing? They don't usually go outside things. Bruh, the fact that this dude's a fire alchemist, he can still use regular alchemy is just like when he did that, it kind of put like the biggest light bulb in my head. But it was like very satisfying.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a
oh
good
shit,
point.
he can he can fucking do
You can do
regular
what?
alchemy too. So not only can you specialize in flame, but not only that, you can also set your flame up because then it also goes into his senses kind of have lulled around the fact that he burns bodies. He knows what the charred sense of flesh smells like, and he knows
Yeah, it bothers him.
it, yeah, and even to go so far as he he went and burned himself and almost fainted from the pain, but goes far to say, oh, I mean, well, not say, but you can infer like, bruh, anyone you burned stuff before probably ain't get up that quick. So,
Yeah,
like,
just
did
imagine
you?
like he gave himself fourth degree burns through a stab wound. Like any clue how much that had to hurt?
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say.
Because
But
third
took a
degree
look crazy.
burns, like I think that would be fourth degree burns, if I remember correctly, based on the definition. A fourth degree burn is yeah, it would have been it's the most severe type of burn, damaging all layers of skin and potentially underlying tissues like muscle, tendons, and bone. So yeah, I think it would be a fourth degree burn that he gives himself. Let me see what degree of burn is cauterizing a stab wound.
You-
So if you use a tool, it's a first degree burn. So I'm assuming that it would be a fourth degree burn based on specifically where he did it and how he had to do it for himself. Okay, yeah. So he would have given himself fourth degree burn since he had to go all the way through his side, because like the her fingers went out his back after the stab.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have had to been like he would have had to burn himself all the way through. So I think that would count as a fourth degree burn based on the definition of fourth degree burn. So, which is pretty heavy. Fourth degree burns are things that go into, yeah, so the definition of fourth degree is burns that extend beyond the skin into deeper tissues, including muscle, tendons, and possibly bone.
That would definitely
Yeah,
be
he
a
would have
fourth
given
degree
himself fourth degree. Yeah. Okay, good to know.
1000% be
Yeah,
fourth degree
yeah.
burns.
And then
So the
would he
burns we
like?
typically as humans don't see on a regular basis.
Yeah, so he would have had to burn the fuck out of himself, and also he had the
It's
wherewithal.
like that's like
Like,
you.
what were you saying? Gonna say?
That's basically no. That's basically because a cauterizing a wound would be a fourth degree burn, wouldn't it?
No, it's not considered. It's considered a first degree most of the time because you're just
First,
burning the
because it's a
skin.
tool.
You're just burning the skin
Ah, so nah. So yeah,
to like burn the
because
wounds.
that was the whole thing. Because I was thinking a scenario that would actually cause a fourth degree burn for us, but I think
Like,
most of those scenarios you're already dead.
yeah. So cauterization is basically where they just burn it just enough to kill the stuff around it so it stops. And it's normally like a laser or a hot piece of metal that's used to stop it, or sometimes acid. It's just used to stop bleeding and destroy the tissue of stuff
Hmm.
that's bleeding.
Hmm.
So his though, he would have had to go since it was like because most of the time when you see stuff gets cauterized, it's like a cut, and you just cauterize the stuff inside the cut. But now he would have had to go all the way through, like use the fire, not just there, but on his back too, and then the through to prevent the internal bleeding probably because of how clean the wound was, how clean the
Yeah,
stab wound was. So, and he talked about it almost passing out because it was so painful.
yeah,
So, and then
almost passing out.
all that happens, and he still had the wherewithal to grab the lighter with flint on it and carve an entirety of a magic circle on his hand, or a transmutation circle, not a magic circle. It's basically a magic circle if you think about it, but I digress. It's a transmutation circle, which is crazy. All while after giving himself fourth degree burns. Goddamn dog.
Yeah, that's pretty gritty.
Yeah, shit crazy. Shit totally crazy, dude. It hurts just thinking about that.
A lot of things in the show.
Yeah, that shit crazy. Good God,
Nah,
man.
bro,
Shit crazy.
Mustang is definitely a definitely a gritty one. He's definitely up there with some of the more powerhouses in anime. You talk about just what he taken himself, putting himself through. Is what I'm gonna say, just putting himself through. That's a lot. You talking about like, especially because like he, I don't know if he can like, I know he can control the intensity of the flames, but I don't know how much
I don't think
when you
it
get to
says how
a certain
much.
point.
It's just that he
Yeah,
can do it.
I don't really think he gets to a point where he's like just putting flame out and you just got to take it because he can burn people, to pretty much crisp.
Yeah, he does. Because he talks about friggin' like cremating people, and he can smell it, and he hates the smell. So it's like, god damn, dog, what the fuck, you know? Like
Doing
it's
though.
just
Yeah.
rough. Sounds rough. And then we get the him killing Lust, which is literal fire. Okay, he burns her to death to save Hawkeye and Alphonse to a degree, which is really cool. Well, it's the opposite of really cool, like technically, because he basically sets her on fire repeatedly until it burns her core out, till it destroys the Philosopher's Stone in her chest. And you see, like,
I
it's
thought it,
gotta be insanely painful.
but I
She
thought it was
got
insane and
cremated.
crazy how he ripped it out and she formed around it, like
Yeah,
reformed around it. And I thought that was pretty freaking crazy.
yeah, that just goes to show us how powerful their healing factors are. Is what I think. Like that really shows us. So it just goes to show how much damage fire does. Like fire does so much damage to people. Like God, and it makes you feel bad for Mustang because he was forced to burn bodies. Like the implication of him being like, yeah, I know this smell. That's the smell of a cremated corpse. Hopefully she's done for. Like you're just like, God damn, Mustang, what did they put you through in that war? Apparently a lot. God,
Like a whole lot.
yeah. Like, oof. Like that's rough. It's found so painful. Just hearing it, you're just like, ugh. Like, ugh, brother, ugh. Like that meme. Like that's what it made me think of. Like, ah, that's
Like,
rough.
ooh.
But and then it just ties into like how much they had to sacrifice as a group. Like they had to, some of them had to sacrifice their humanity, some of them had to sacrifice other stuff. It's just like, God damn, man, how much stuff are you gonna put them through, Miss Author Lady? Like, God damn, he can only take so much.
You know my love.
Yeah, leave him
You
alone.
can love.
Like, God, he can only take so much pain. And she's just like, well, that's too goddamn bad. It's like how, what I hear in my head. Like, well, he's gonna have to take some more. It's like, God, lady, please stop.
No more, please. No more.
Yeah, no more. But, ah, man, it's just through and through just solid. Like,
And it's only
ah,
the
man.
first 22 episodes.
Yeah. Oh well, we're getting right into the like it stops the episode Winry learns the truth about what happened to our parents, and it's just like, God damn, dog. Like that's the last episode. That and Fear Bradley trying to kill Lynn, and that's where these episodes stopped. So it just stops on a.
Hmm.
I think it's the perfect place to stop to. I didn't realize it when we were like deciding where to stop at. That it's the perfect place to stop because if you think of it, it's also ties into the sacrifice motif because of how uh they sacrifice telling Winry, and it almost ruins their like there's the potential that it ruins their friendship, which is another interesting concept,
I knew that. I didn't think about looking through.
which I
Yeah, it
thought
could have
was really
possibly
cool.
ruined everything.
Yeah, like they had to sacrifice that just so Winry wouldn't lose herself. And then we get to see where Scar realizes maybe the Elric brothers are good, which is crazy. Like he's just like, wait, they're just like my brother. I can't kill them. Like he has the come to Jesus moment for a minute.
Yeah,
So it's just
starting to understand.
it's just all together just like beautiful. Beautiful. Gotta love to see it stuff. Love it. Love that shit. Looking forward to. So, my favorite moment in the show, I don't remember what episode it is. We might get to it next week. The fight between Alphonse and Salim. I don't remember what episode that happens. That's
I
arguably
can't tell you.
it's that one or the big fight with what's it called? That or the big fight with where Fuhrer basically takes on the entire army. Those are my two favorite moments in the show. Or my two favorite fights in the show. So I'm looking forward to those. Don't remember what episode those are on.
Fee.
Um, I think we do get the fight between Salim next week. No, we don't. That's episode 49. Damn. Because Salim's powers is crazy. And then, what's it called? I think 46 is the Fuhrer fight, where it's basically just using Sharingan to beat up children. Because that's kind of what happens. But we see, like, he just, like, dude, this shit. So I'm just gonna gush over this thing if we keep talking about it. So I need to stop. Okay, I'm just gonna keep gushing. So I'm gonna stop there. That way I can stop gushing over how dope it is and how much I fuck with it. So I'm gonna stop there. Okay, I need to stop. Yeah, but I think that's it for that this week, guys. Um, we'll be back next week with episode 22 or 23 to 44, and then the next week will be 44 to or 45 to 64. But want to thank everyone that came out. We appreciate y'all.
As
Thanks
always,
again.
like, comment,
Yeah,
subscribe.
like, comment,
Make sure y'all
subscribe.
hit them comments, let people know, man. Like the video, join the
Yeah.
channel, man. Appreciate
If you
y'all.
like what we're talking about and you want to say like something that you think would be a good one to talk about after this one, because we haven't decided what's next after this one, go
We
ahead, hit
usually
us
don't.
up.
We usually wait till we get done and start thinking about what we do next. So it's always a prime time to tell us what we do.
Yeah.
In any video we doing, like it's always prime to tell us. We welcome it.
Yeah, so once again, thanks everyone for stopping by. Hope y'all have a good week. See y'all next week for the next one. Deuces, everybody.
Ooh, ooh.